The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 32nd floor, each droplet racing down the glass like tears on a giant's face. Sarah Whitmore stood with her back to her office door, studying the London skyline through the blur of water, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. At 43, she had everything she'd ever wanted: the corner office at Prestige Global, a six-figure salary, and the power to make or break careers with a single stroke of her Mont Blanc pen. That pen now trembled in her hand as she held it over the guest list for tomorrow night's Charity Excellence Awards. 400 names, each one meticulously vetted, each one worthy of attending the most prestigious charitable event of the year. But it was the name she'd just crossed out with thick, deliberate strokes that made her heart pound. Marcus Chen. Ms. Whitmore. Her assistant James knocked softly. The final guest list needs to go to security in 20 minutes. I know, she replied, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her chest. She turned from the window, her heels clicking against the marble floor with the authority she'd cultivated over 15 years in the industry. Send it as is. James glanced at the list, his eyebrows rising slightly at the heavy black lines through Marcus's name. Should I notify Mr. Chen that his invitation has been reconsidered? Sarah's jaw tightened. That won't be necessary. He'll find out soon enough. As James left, Sarah sank into her leather chair, the weight of her decision pressing down on her shoulders. Marcus Chen. Even thinking his name brought back the bitter taste of betrayal. 7 years ago, they'd been partners at Harrison Events, working on the Japanese embassy gala that was supposed to launch them both into the stratosphere of event management. Instead, the project had collapsed spectacularly, taking Sarah's reputation with it, while Marcus somehow emerged unscathed, moving on to a better position at Chen Associates. She'd rebuilt herself brick by brick, rejection by rejection, until she'd become untouchable. Now, Marcus needed this event. After exposing corruption at Sterling Corporation, he'd been blacklisted by half of London's corporate world. The Charity Excellence Awards would have been his redemption, his chance to network his way back into respectability. But Sarah remembered the emails that had mysteriously disappeared, the vendor contracts that had been changed without her knowledge, the way Marcus had stood silent when the board blamed her for the embassy gala's failure. He'd stabbed her in the back then. She was simply returning the favor now. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. Sarah Whitmore. Ms. Whitmore, you don't know me. The voice was young, female, trembling with barely controlled emotion. My name is Emma Chen. Marcus Chen is my father. Sarah's blood turned to ice. I'm sorry, but I don't... Please don't hang up. I know what you did. I know you removed him from tomorrow's list, and I know why you think you had to do it. The girl's voice cracked. But you're wrong about him. You've been wrong for 7 years. Listen, young lady, I don't know what your father has told you. He's told me nothing. He doesn't even know I'm calling. But I have something you need to see. Emails, documents, proof that he tried to save you 7 years ago, not destroy you. Sarah laughed, but it came out hollow. That's ridiculous. Meet me. 1 hour. The Costa Coffee on Bishopsgate. If you still want to keep him off that list after you see what I have, I'll never contact you again. Emma paused. But Ms. Whitmore, my father has cancer, stage 3. This event, these connections, they're not just about his career anymore. They're about leaving something behind for my mother and me before... Her voice broke entirely. The line went dead. Sarah stared at her phone, then at the crossed-out name on the list. Her hand moved to her computer mouse, hovering over the email icon that would send the list to security. 1 click, and it would be final. Marcus would arrive tomorrow night only to be turned away at the door, humiliated in front of everyone who mattered. She thought about power, about justice, about the sweet satisfaction of revenge served cold. Then she thought about a teenage girl's breaking voice and the word that had shattered her armor: cancer. Sarah grabbed her coat. The rain had intensified, beating against the windows like an accusation. She had 53 minutes to get to Bishopsgate, to face whatever truth Emma Chen claimed to possess. The guest list glowed on her computer screen, cursor blinking next to the send button, waiting for her return. As she entered the elevator, Sarah caught her reflection in the polished steel doors. She looked successful, powerful, untouchable. But behind her carefully applied makeup and designer suit, she saw something else. A woman about to discover that everything she'd believed for 7 years might have been a lie. The Costa Coffee on Bishopsgate was nearly empty, the late afternoon crowd having retreated from the rain. Sarah spotted Emma Chen immediately. She had her father's distinctive cheekbones and the same determined set to her jaw. The teenager sat hunched over a laptop, a manila folder beside her, wearing a school uniform from St. Mary's Academy. "You came," Emma said, looking up with eyes that were red-rimmed but fierce. Sarah slid into the opposite seat, her Burberry coat still beaded with rain. "You have 20 minutes. Emma's hands shook as she opened the folder. "My father keeps everything, every email, every document, every text. He says it's because he's methodical, but I think it's because he never got over what happened with you. Your father destroyed my career." "No." Emma's voice was sharp, adult beyond her 17 years. "David Harrison destroyed your career. My father tried to stop him." She pulled out a printed email chain, the pages yellowed with age. Sarah recognized the date immediately, 2 weeks before the embassy gala disaster. Her breath caught as she read Marcus's words to David Harrison, their mutual boss. "David, I cannot and will not alter the vendor contracts as you've requested. Sarah has negotiated excellent terms, and changing them now would not only be unethical, but would sabotage the entire event. If you proceed with this, I'll have no choice but to inform Sarah and the board." Harrison's response was below. "You'll do as you're told, or you'll find yourself unemployed with a reputation that ensures you stay that way." Sarah is getting too ambitious. Sometimes people need to be reminded of their place. Sarah's hands trembled as she read Marcus's final reply. "Then I'll take unemployment, but I'm keeping copies of everything." "He was fired the next morning," Emma said quietly. Harrison made it look like a voluntary resignation, gave him a decent reference on the condition that he sign an NDA. "Dad took it because Mum was pregnant with my little brother, and we needed the health insurance." Sarah couldn't speak. She turned to the next document, a screenshot of messages between Harrison and the vendors, sent from a spoofed email address that looked like hers, authorizing changes that would guarantee the event's failure. "But the board meeting," Sarah whispered. "Marcus was there. He didn't say anything when they blamed me." Emma pulled out another document, because Harrison had this. It was a fabricated email, seemingly from Marcus to the Japanese embassy, warning them about Sarah's incompetence and suggesting they reconsider their venue choice. "Harrison showed this to my father an hour before the board meeting, told him that if he defended you, this would be leaked, and you'd think he betrayed you anyway. At least if he stayed quiet, you could rebuild. If this got out, Harrison would make sure neither of you ever worked in London again." Sarah felt the room spin. 7 years. 7 years of hatred, of planning revenge, of climbing to the top just to prove she could survive what Marcus had done to her. Except Marcus hadn't done anything but try to protect her. "Why now?" she managed to ask. "Why tell me now?" Emma's composure finally cracked. "Because he's dying, Ms. Whitmore. The doctors give him maybe 8 months. He's been trying to expose the Sterling Corporation corruption for years, and when he finally did, they destroyed him for it. This event tomorrow, it's his last chance to connect with people who might help him set up something for us after he's gone. He doesn't want money. He wants to work, to contribute, to leave something meaningful behind." She pulled out her phone, showing Sarah a photo. Marcus, gaunt from chemotherapy, sitting at a desk covered in papers, still working despite everything. "He talks about you sometimes," Emma continued, "never badly. He says you were the most talented event director he ever worked with. He keeps newspaper clippings of your successes. He was so proud when you got the position at Prestige Global." Her voice broke. "He never blamed you for hating him. He said he understood. Sarah stood abruptly, walking to the window. Outside, London rushed by in the rain, thousands of people living their lives, making decisions based on incomplete information, destroying each other with misunderstandings that could have been cleared up with a single conversation. "Ms. Whitmore," Emma said softly, "I'm not asking you to give him special treatment. I'm just asking you not to punish him for something he didn't do. Let him attend tomorrow. Let him have this one night to try to salvage something from his life." Sarah turned back to the teenager who had just shattered her worldview. "Your father doesn't know you're here. He'd be mortified. He still has his pride." Emma gathered the documents. Will you put him back on the list?" Sarah looked at her watch. She had 12 minutes before the list had to be sent to security. 12 minutes to decide whether to swallow 7 years of carefully nurtured anger or to continue a revenge that no longer had meaning. "I have to go," she said, grabbing her coat. "Ms. Whitmore." "Thank you," Sarah said, meeting Emma's eyes. "Thank you for having the courage your father and I never did." She ran through the rain, her heels splashing through puddles, her carefully styled hair falling loose. She had 11 minutes. The security at Prestige Global would need time to process the changes. 10 minutes now. She badged into the building, ignored the elevator, and took the stairs 2 at a time. Her lungs burned as she reached her floor. 6 minutes. Sarah burst through her office door with 4 minutes to spare, her appearance disheveled, rain-soaked, and completely at odds with the composed director who had left an hour ago. James jumped up from his desk, alarmed. "Ms. Whitmore, are you all right?" She didn't answer, diving for her computer. The guest list was still open, the cursor still blinking by the send button. But now, Marcus Chen's crossed-out name seemed to pulse on the screen, an accusation in black and white. 3 minutes. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, deleting the strike-through, restoring Marcus Chen to the list. But as she did, another window popped up, an email from Richard Blackstone, CEO of Prestige Global. "Sarah, I've been informed by David Harrison that Marcus Chen is attempting to attend tomorrow's event. As you know, Harrison is one of our biggest clients for the Sterling account. He's made it clear that Chen's presence would be unwelcome. I trust you've already handled this matter. R.B." Sarah's blood ran cold. David Harrison. After 7 years, he was still pulling strings, still destroying lives from his position as CEO of Harrison Enterprises. And now, he was her client. 2 minutes. She looked at the restored name on the list. Adding Marcus back wouldn't just be reversing a personal decision, it would be defying a direct order from her CEO about a major client's wishes. It would be career suicide. James knocked. "Ms. Whitmore, security is calling. They need the list now." 1 minute. Sarah thought about the corner office she'd fought for, the respect she'd earned, the power she'd accumulated. Then she thought about Marcus, dying of cancer, still trying to do the right thing. She thought about Emma, brave enough to confront a stranger to save her father. She thought about herself 7 years ago, crying in a bathroom stall after being publicly humiliated for something she didn't do. She thought about who she'd become in those 7 years, someone who could destroy a dying man's last chance at redemption because of a lie she'd believed. Her phone rang. Richard Blackstone. "Sarah, just confirming you've removed Chen from the list. Harrison is very particular about this." Sarah stared at the screen. "Richard, what if I told you Harrison was wrong about Marcus? What if I had proof? I'd tell you it doesn't matter. Harrison brings us £2 million a year in business. Chen brings us nothing but trouble. And if I refuse..." There was a long pause. "Then you'd be clearing out your office by Monday morning. Sarah, don't throw away everything you've built for some misguided sense of justice. You're a director now. Act like one." The line went dead. 30 seconds. Sarah's finger hovered over the mouse, 1 click to send the list with Marcus excluded, preserving her career, her status, everything she'd built. Another click to send it with his name restored. Knowing it would cost her everything, she thought about Emma's words. He doesn't want money. He wants to work, to contribute, to leave something meaningful behind. Isn't that what they all wanted? to leave something meaningful behind. Sarah clicked send, Marcus Chen's name clearly visible on the list. Then she typed another email, this one to Richard Blackstone. The list has been sent with all appropriate guests included. If you find this unacceptable, you'll have my resignation on your desk Monday morning. She hit send on that too, then leaned back in her chair, suddenly exhausted. James appeared in her doorway. Security confirmed receipt of the list. Also, Mr. Blackstone's assistant just called. He wants to see you in his office immediately. Sarah stood, smoothing her still damp skirt. Tell him I'll be there in 10 minutes. Ms. Whitmore? James looked concerned. Is everything all right? She laughed, surprising herself with how genuine it sounded. James, I just did something either very stupid or very right. Maybe both. Do you need anything? Actually, yes. Can you find me the contact information for Chen Associates, the company Marcus Chen used to run? The whistleblower. But I thought, just get me the information, please. As James scurried off, Sarah walked to her window. The rain had stopped, and breaks in the clouds revealed glimpses of sunset, painting the London skyline in shades of gold and crimson. Tomorrow night, Marcus would walk into the Charity Excellence Awards. He'd probably never know how close he'd come to being excluded, or what it had cost to ensure his inclusion, but Sarah would know, and maybe that was enough. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Emma. Thank you. You don't know what this means. Sarah typed back, yes, I do. She grabbed her jacket and headed for Blackstone's office, ready to face whatever came next. As she walked through the halls of power she'd spent so long fighting to inhabit, she realized something had shifted. The office, the title, the salary, they still mattered, but they no longer defined her. For 7 years, she'd been the woman who survived betrayal. Now, perhaps, she could be the woman who chose truth over power, forgiveness over revenge. The woman who recognized that sometimes the greatest strength isn't in holding on to control, but in letting it go. Richard Blackstone's office occupied the entire northeast corner of the 35th floor, a temple to corporate power with its mahogany panels and original Rothko paintings. Sarah had only been here 3 times before, when she was hired, when she was promoted to director, and when she'd landed the sterling account. This would be her 4th and likely final visit. Blackstone didn't look up from his tablet as she entered. At 62, he had the kind of presence that made grown executives feel like schoolchildren called to the headmaster's office. His grey hair was perfectly styled, his suit cost more than most people's monthly salary, and his silence was a weapon he wielded with surgical precision. Sit, he said finally, still not looking up. Sarah sat, her back straight, refusing to show weakness. Do you know what you've done? His voice was calm, which was worse than if he'd shouted. I've approved a guest list for tomorrow's event. Now he looked up, his blue eyes cold as winter frost. You've defied a direct order. You've potentially cost us our biggest client. You've chosen a nobody, a diseased whistleblower, over the company that made you who you are. I chose the truth over a lie. Blackstone laughed, a sound devoid of humor. The truth, Sarah. We're in the business of creating perfect events for imperfect people. The truth is, whatever our clients need it to be. Marcus Chen never betrayed me. David Harrison set us both up to fail because I was getting too successful too quickly. I have proof. I don't care if you have a signed confession from God himself. Blackstone stood, moving to his window. Harrison brings us $2 million in annual revenue. Your principals don't pay salaries. My principles are what made me good at this job. No, your ruthlessness is what made you good at this job. The Sarah Whitmore who walked in here 3 years ago would have understood that. He turned back to her. Remove Chen from the list. Now, from my computer. No! The word hung between them like a challenge. Then you're fired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. Your company devices will be deactivated within the hour. Sarah stood. I expected as much. Did you? Blackstone's composure cracked slightly. Do you have any idea what you're throwing away? You're 43 years old, Sarah. You rebuild from this, and you'll be 50 before you see another director position, if you ever do. Harrison will make sure you're blacklisted from every major firm in London. Then I'll go somewhere else. There is nowhere else. Not at your level. Not with your ambitions. He returned to his desk. I'm giving you one last chance. Remove Chen's name, and we forget this conversation happened. Sarah thought about her flat in Kensington, the mortgage she'd just refinanced. She thought about the look she'd get at industry events, the whispers that would follow her exit. She thought about starting over, again, at 43. Then she thought about Marcus, spending his last months believing she hated him for something he'd never done. My decision stands. Blackstone pressed a button on his desk. Security to the executive floor, please. There's something else, Sarah said, pulling out her phone. I've drafted an email to the Financial Times about how Prestige Global knowingly supports David Harrison, despite evidence of his systematic destruction of employees' careers. I've included the documents proving what he did to Marcus and me. I haven't sent it yet. Blackstone's face went pale. That's blackmail. No, it's insurance. I'll walk out quietly, take my termination, and disappear. But if Harrison makes any move to further destroy Marcus's reputation, or if you try to have him removed from tomorrow's event, this email gets sent. The Financial Times loves stories about corporate corruption, especially when they involve dying whistleblowers being persecuted by the companies they exposed. You've lost your mind. Maybe, or maybe I finally found it. 2 security guards appeared at the door. Escort Ms. Whitmore to her office. She has 10 minutes to collect her personal items. As Sarah walked out, flanked by security, she passed the cubicles of junior associates who'd once looked at her with awe. Now they averted their eyes, already distancing themselves from her fall from grace. Only James met her gaze, his expression a mixture of confusion and concern. In her office, Sarah packed quickly. The photo of her parents, her personal notebook, the crystal paperweight she'd bought to celebrate her promotion. Everything else belonged to the company. The corner office with its magnificent view, the prestige, the power, all of it would belong to someone else by Monday. Her phone rang. Emma Chen. Ms. Whitmore, I heard someone at Prestige just told my father you've been fired. Is it because of... It's because of choices I made, the right choices for once. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. Sarah smiled, surprising herself. No, Emma. This is David Harrison's fault. And it's my fault for taking 7 years to see the truth, but it's not yours. What will you do? Sarah looked around her soon-to-be former office. I don't know, but for the first time in 7 years, I know who I am. That's worth more than any corner office. After hanging up, she found herself standing at the window one last time. The city sparkled below, endless possibilities in every light. She'd fallen from these heights before and survived. She could do it again. As security escorted her to the elevator, she passed Blackstone in the hallway. This isn't over, Sarah. You've made a powerful enemy today. I already had powerful enemies. Now at least I know who they are. The elevator doors closed on her old life. As they descended, Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Freedom. She'd lost her job, her status, probably her career. But she'd found something more valuable. The person she'd been before ambition and betrayal had hardened her heart. Tomorrow night, Marcus Chen would attend the Charity Excellence Awards. He'd network, make connections, try to build something for his family. He'd never know the price of his admission, but somewhere in the crowd, Sarah would be watching, not as the director of events for Prestige Global, but as someone who'd finally chosen humanity over power. Sarah stood outside the Royal Exhibition Centre, watching London's elite stream through the golden-lit entrance. 24 hours ago, she would have been inside, clipboard in hand, orchestrating every detail. Now she was just another face in the crowd, wearing a simple black dress instead of her usual designer gown, holding a ticket Emma Chen had somehow procured for her. You came. Marcus's voice behind her was exactly as she remembered, soft, thoughtful, tinged with surprise. She turned slowly. The photos hadn't done justice to how much the cancer had changed him. His suit hung loose on his diminished frame, but his eyes, those earnest brown eyes that had once trusted her completely, remained unchanged. Marcus, 7 years of imagined conversations collapsed into a single word. Emma told me everything. He stepped closer, and she could see the exhaustion beneath his carefully applied concealer. Sarah, I'm so sorry. About the job, about everything. You have nothing to apologize for. I should have fought harder, should have found a way to tell you the truth. We both should have done many things differently. They stood in awkward silence. Two people who'd once finished each other's sentences now struggling for words. Around them, London's business elite swept past in their finery, none of them knowing they were witnessing a reunion 7 years and countless misunderstandings in the making. I heard Harrison's inside, Marcus said quietly. He's being honored for his charitable contributions. Sarah laughed bitterly. Of course he is. We don't have to go in. I know you've already sacrificed enough. We're going in. Sarah linked her arm through his, feeling how thin he'd become. You're going to network, make those connections, build that future for Emma and your family. And I'm going to make sure David Harrison knows that neither of us is afraid of him anymore. They walked through the entrance together. The ballroom was exactly as Sarah had envisioned it. Soaring ceilings draped in silver silk, tables adorned with white orchids, ice sculptures that caught the light like frozen stars. Her replacement had executed her plans perfectly. Sarah Whitmore? Jennifer Hastings, a prominent investor, approached with surprise evident on her face. I heard you'd left Prestige rather suddenly. I did. Sarah kept her voice steady. Sometimes we outgrow our positions. Jennifer's eyes flicked to Marcus, recognition dawning. Mr. Chen, I read about your work exposing the sterling corruption. Brave stuff, though I imagine it came at a cost. Everything worthwhile does, Marcus replied. As Jennifer engaged Marcus in conversation about his future plans, Sarah scanned the room. David Harrison held court near the stage, surrounded by sycophants. He looked exactly the same, silver-haired, distinguished, untouchable. Then his eyes met hers across the room, and his confident smile faltered. Excuse me, Sarah said to Marcus. There's something I need to do. She crossed the ballroom, each step deliberate, refusing to break eye contact with Harrison. The crowd seemed to part before her, whispers following in her wake. Everyone knew she'd been fired. Everyone wondered why she was here. David. She stopped directly in front of him, close enough that his admirers had to step back. Sarah. He recovered quickly, his smile sharp as a blade. I heard about your unfortunate decision. Career suicide doesn't suit you. Neither does letting you continue to destroy people's lives. I have no idea what you're talking about. Of course you don't. She pulled out her phone, showing him the email to the Financial Times, still sitting in her drafts. But you might be interested to know that I have 7 years' worth of evidence about your business practices. Every manipulation, every career you've destroyed, every lie you've told to maintain your power. His face darkened. You're threatening me? I'm informing you. Marcus Chen is here tonight with my blessing and under my protection. If anything happens to him, his family, or his reputation, this email gets sent. And unlike 7 years ago, this time I have nothing left to lose. You always were too emotional for this business, and you were always too cruel for it. Richard Blackstone appeared at Harrison's elbow. Is there a problem here? Ms. Whitmore was just leaving, Harrison said coldly. Actually, I was just beginning. Sarah raised her voice slightly, enough that nearby guests turned to listen. I was telling Mr. Harrison how interesting it is that he's being honored for charity tonight, when his real talent lies in destroying the careers of anyone who threatens him, like he did to Marcus Chen 7 years ago, like he tried to do tonight. Sarah, Blackstone warned, you're making a scene. Good. Someone should have made a scene years ago. A hand touched her elbow gently. Marcus had appeared beside her. That's enough, Sarah. He's not worth it. But then Emma Chen stepped forward from behind her father, her young face fierce with determination. "No, Dad, it's not enough, not nearly enough." She held up her own phone, and Sarah saw that she was live streaming. 3,000 people are watching right now. They've heard every word. Emma turned the camera toward Harrison. "Mr. Harrison, would you like to tell them why you destroyed my father's career? Why you're still trying to punish him for telling the truth?" Harrison's face went from red to white. "Turn that off immediately." The Sterling corruption story has 50,000 views on social media, Emma continued. "People are very interested in the men who tried to silence my father. I wonder how many views this will get." Blackstone grabbed for the phone, but Emma stepped back, and suddenly other phones were rising throughout the ballroom. Younger guests, the ones who understood the power of social media, were recording everything. "This is a private event," Harrison sputtered. "Then you shouldn't have made it personal," Marcus said quietly. He looked frailer than ever, but stood straighter than Sarah had seen him in years. "7 years ago, you destroyed 2 careers to protect your ego. Sarah lost her position because she was better than you wanted her to be. I lost mine because I wouldn't help you destroy her. We've both paid for your insecurity long enough." The ballroom had gone silent, except for the whisper of phones capturing every word. Harrison turned to Blackstone. "If Prestige Global doesn't remove these people immediately, you'll lose every contract I control." Blackstone hesitated, calculating. 2 million in annual revenue versus the viral destruction of his company's reputation happening in real time. "Security," he called out finally. "Please escort Mr. Blackstone." A woman Sarah didn't recognize stepped forward. "Melissa Crawford, CEO of Crawford International. If you remove Mr. Chen, who exposed corruption at great personal cost, my company will withdraw our £5 million annual contract with Prestige." "Same here," another voice called out. "Integrity matters more than Harrison's money." One by one, other clients began speaking up. Not all of them. Harrison still had his allies, but enough. Enough to make Blackstone's calculation shift. The morning light painted Sarah's living room in soft gold as Marcus set down his phone, 43 unread emails glowing on the screen. His hands, thin from chemotherapy, trembled as he reached across the space between them. "Sarah, I have maybe 8 months. Not to live in regret, but to build something beautiful from our broken pieces." His eyes, despite the exhaustion, held a spark she remembered from their early days. Every company reaching out, they're hungry for authenticity. We could give them that. Emma appeared in the doorway with pastries and her father's medications. This child who'd become a warrior, who'd found courage, both adults, had lacked. The video has 12 million views. "The world knows the truth now, Dad. Finally." Sarah watched them, father and daughter bound by love and limited time. "Marcus, your health must come first. My health means nothing if I leave this world without fixing what was broken." He took his pills with practiced ease. "We'll call it Phoenix Events. You'll lead, I'll advise when I can. Emma will help with social media." Sarah's phone rang. Richard Blackstone offering her everything back. The position, a raise, vindication. The corner office she'd bled for was hers again. "No," she said simply, her voice steady as morning light. "I choose Phoenix over power." Marcus smiled then, really smiled, and for a moment she saw the partner she'd lost 7 years ago. Not romantic, that door had closed long ago, but something deeper. 2 souls who'd walked through fire separately, now choosing to build from the ashes together. "Sarah," he said at the door, Emma supporting him. "If I had to lose 7 years to reach this moment of truth, I'd do it again. Some redemptions are worth the wait." After they left, Sarah began typing on her laptop, "Phoenix Events, where integrity meets excellence." The sun climbed higher, warming her face as she wrote. Somewhere across London, Marcus was explaining to his wife why their lives were changing again. Emma was probably designing their logo with the fierce creativity of youth, and David Harrison, He was learning that empires built on fear crumble when people choose courage over comfort. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the Royal Exhibition Centre, but everything had changed. Phoenix Events' launch gala hummed with authentic joy. Whistleblowers, truth-tellers, and companies who'd chosen integrity over profit filled the room. Marcus sat at the main table, frailer but radiant. The treatments had given him precious time. Beside him, Emma wore the dress they'd chosen together, her father insisting on being part of every milestone he could still reach. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah's voice carried across the hushed crowd, "Phoenix Events was born from a simple truth. The best moments in life come not from power, but from choosing humanity over hierarchy." She found Marcus's eyes across the room. 6 months ago, my business partner and I discovered that 7 years of hatred had been built on a lie. We could have let bitterness define our ending. Instead, we chose to write a new story. Marcus stood slowly, Emma steadying him. The room held its breath as he made his way to the microphone. "I have terminal cancer," he said simply, "but I've never felt more alive because I've learned that legacy isn't what you build, it's who you lift up while building it." He gestured to the room. "Every person here has faced a choice between easy silence and difficult truth. You chose truth. That's the only guest list that matters. Those brave enough to stand when falling would be simpler." David Harrison's empire had crumbled within weeks of the viral video, but Sarah no longer thought of him. She watched Emma help her father back to his seat, watched the room rise in genuine applause, watched lives that had been broken start to mend. Later, as the evening wound down, Marcus found her on the balcony. London sparkled below, infinite lights holding infinite stories. "Thank you," he said simply, "for giving me a chance to leave something good behind." "Thank you," she replied, "for showing me that the best revenge isn't success, it's transformation." Emma joined them, linking arms with both. "You know what's beautiful? You both fell from grace and found something better. You found truth." As they stood together, the dying whistleblower, the reformed executive, and the brave daughter who'd saved them both, Sarah realized the real guest list had never been about who was included or excluded. It was about who we choose to become when the invitation to change arrives at our door, demanding we decide between who we were and who we could be. Marcus would die 4 months later, surrounded by love and knowing Phoenix Events would continue his legacy. Sarah would build it into something magnificent, not despite the pain of the past, but because of the wisdom it had taught. And Emma, she would grow up knowing that sometimes the greatest love is having the courage to show someone the truth, even when the lie feels safer. The guest list for a life well lived, they'd learned, has only one requirement: the bravery to begin again.